Kevin, and how he worked for less than 3 days in a kitchen by Dathaen. Let me set the stage. I had been working in a sushi/hibachi restaurant that was run by an Asian family who spoke little to no English depending who you talked to for right around a year. During the evening shifts, typically I would run the kitchen by myself, which is basically a rectangle with only one of the small ends open that was small enough for me to have my hand sitting in, not on, the cold table and have the other hand on top of the flat top grill, and would only receive help if it got busy. I had been a cook for about 7 years around this point and it usually went pretty smoothly. Until they decided to hire Kevin during a busy season. He lasted less than 3 full shifts. Day 1. I was introduced to Kevin, a 18 to 20-year-old kid who claimed he had worked at a large buffet-style chain restaurant nearby, which as we'll come to see, is highly doubtful. I figured that meant he had experience and would be easy to train, so I'm pumped and ready to have some help on the line. I am told he is to learn how to work the fryers and I set him about doing some simple tasks, such as refrying, aka heating up, the shrimp tempura, breading and frying certain sushi rolls, or even frying some appetizers like fries. We had 2 fryers sitting next to each other, one with baskets to drop fries and stuff in, and the other was open oil where we breaded/fried the tempura/sushi rolls in. It took him a bit longer than I thought it should take for someone to grasp the simple concept of putting things in a fryer until they floated, and it seemed like he was genuinely trying, but hey, everyone learns at different speeds, right? Right? Wrong. Very, very wrong. The day ends and he goes home and I'm left uncertain, already, if this is going to work out. Day 2. I clock in and the front of house manager, the owner's wife, runs past me saying "Hey, your problem now, go and starts pushing me to the back. Fuck. Okay, we'll just get through today, maybe it'll be better. Kevin is still struggling on the concept of frying things, but has taken notice of a few burn scars I have on my hands and arms. I explain that it happens sometimes in full kitchens and that it might happen to him if he doesn't really focus on his training. This cautionary tale only caused him to take a full minute to drop anything into the fryer instead of the 3.5 seconds it should take to unwrap and drop. At this point I'm starting to prepare entrees faster than he can fry something that should only take a minute and a half. And I don't think I'd have been as irritated if it was only him moving slow. No, he was hovering 6 inches behind me, his face directly over my shoulder, chatting away and telling me how he was, and I quote, the richest kid in his middle school from when he flipped candy from the vending machine at a higher price, or how if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen Amirite Huweihu, which is a bit ironic, as we'll soon find out. I'm getting pretty fed up with his shit. I used to be prone to pretty intense bouts of anger, and have cut out all courtesy in my demeanor. Instead of "excuse me," it's "move," instead of a long-winded explanation about anything really, it's "no idea" or "deal with it." I may have told him something to the tune of "if your brain worked half as much as your mouth, you'd have learned at least fucking something by now," but this is when his fight or flight response kicks in and becomes passive-aggressive, refusing to move out of my way, no matter what the situation is. Stack of hot as fuck pans in my hands? 18 orders on the board and I need to grab something from the cooler? Nothing mattered for this human wall, except that he wasn't getting his "excuse me please." I very nearly burned him on accident multiple times, and was only avoided him by doing very dangerous acrobatics. His shift ended and I expressed my belief that I didn't think this was going to work out to the owners. I left, exhausted, and prepared myself for another day with Kevin. /the final day. Kevin is late on his, unknowingly to him, final day. His usual antics were in full force: late appetizers, dropping the wrong amount of food for an order, chatting instead of working, etc. Except, today, he decided it would be a good day to try to force his way into working the grill. Which was my station. While I had stuff on the grill and the spatulas in my hands. I looked at him after the first attempt, gave him a very gruff "fuck off, I'm done training you, time to sink or swim motherfucker," and blatantly ignored him for the rest of the shift. Or I would have, had he not still been keeping up the human wall act. I did catch him telling a server, who I was close with, "I don't think Dathaen likes me very much," To which I looked at my friend, wide-eyed and shocked that he couldn't fathom the depths of my contempt for him. The server burst out laughing in Kevin's face. I swear we're not terrible people, we got along with the other 10 or so employees. The final scene I want to set in this travesty of an attempted employment, starts with somewhere around 10 to 12 orders on the board, my grill full, and no teriyaki glaze having been made. Kevin was trained on, and given the task that day, to make teriyaki glaze for service. Which he did not do, and I did not catch in time before it got busy. So I shoulder my way past him and back to make the glaze, and to make the glaze, we had to boil the sauce and add a starch slurry to thicken it. This means I had a well over 400° Fahrenheit 18-inch pan in my hands, some orders of filet mignon, chicken, and other various foods on the grill, and a one-man phalanx in my way. With a growing fury, I prompted him with a move, then a louder move, then an almost shouted "Get the fuck out of my way, remember the anger issue?" I set down the pan, very literally shoved him off of the line, and went back to work. He was quickly whisked away by the owner's wife, taken outside, and fired. Epilogue/bonus. Shortly, as in literally less than 15 minutes, after Kevin had been fired, there was a loud banging on the back door. Is that fucking Kevin? I thought. Nope, it was the owner's wife with a fear for her life in her eyes. She came in, slammed the door, and stood there for a few minutes. I asked her if she was okay, to which she just shook her head for a few seconds, and responded he tried to hit me. Yes, Kevin had attempted to assault his previous boss. While his own mother was profusely apologizing to the owner's wife for some reason. I'm not entirely sure what that was all about. I know I did not handle the situation well, that I shouldn't have shoved him or been a dick, but that was who I was then. I wanted to keep the story as accurate as possible. This event was actually the sole reason I took a more introspective look at myself and learned how to not be this way, so I guess this Kevin was able to manage to do something good at the very least.
My colleague Kevina by JustxJules. Last year we got a new trainee who supports our sales team, Kevina. This girl is the most entertaining thing that ever happened to my workplace, and here's why. Kevina told us a story about how she wanted to have a cool pattern in her hair, so she took a puncher and tried to punch holes in her hair several times. She was shocked that her hair just got cut off instead. We assumed she was like 9 or 10 years old during that story, but when we asked she said that it happened a year ago. Kevina called a Brachiosaurus a long neck rex unironically. Kevina had schnitzel for lunch and thought it was a good idea to put it on the heater to keep it warm enough for her dad to eat in the evening. She proceeded to forget it there and called later that we have to remove the schnitzel so it wouldn't catch fire. Kevina didn't want to hide some balloons in a locker because she thought that balloons would pop if they can't breathe. Kevina got an assignment and my boss jokingly called it industrial espionage. Kevina proceeded to title every document related to her assignment that way. Kevina wanted to buy and keep otters in her backyard. Kevina asked a professional translator if she could translate things in general. Bless her heart.
Kevin attempts a robbery by BloatedBaryonyx. So this happened the other week. I wouldn't have believed it had I not been there myself. So it's around 12 on a Saturday, and myself and a friend have just gotten back from a shopping trip. She wanted some help picking out fabrics for a costume. I get an urgent call from my BF to get back to our flat ASAP. I tell my friend I'll text her later and run off back home to find that our apartment has been broken into. Stuff is thrown all over the place. One of the walls has been spray painted, poorly I might add. Plus the asshole's gone and put his cigarettes out on our counters, tables and my boyfriend's expensive home-built PC. He also drank a half bottle of whiskey and ate a whole packet of our favorite biscuits. Well, I'm shocked and furious, but on closer inspection not so much harm is done. Whoever broke in didn't even take the laptops, tablets etc. that were laying around. The biggest shocker though, is that the idiot that broke in left his bags. We call the police, who say they'll be there in 45 minutes or so since we're not in danger or anything, but to call them back if anything else happens. In the meantime we look through his bags. We find some of our charging leads, a few small items of ours worth maybe 20 each. We also find some everybody wins type sports certificates printed on plain paper. Apparently Kevin, not his real name of course, was the most improved skier. He's got some school books filled half with bad work, half with amateur rap lyrics. Most importantly we find his ID and the phone numbers for Mr. and Mrs. Kevin. Ha! So, why did he leave all his stuff? Well, my boyfriend had been up all night working on some database project, and had slept later than usual. I'd left the door unlocked since I figured he'd be in anyway so nothing would happen. Well, Kevin somehow got past the security door downstairs and found our flat door unlocked. He'd come in, rummaged through our stuff and helped himself to our Viscount biscuits and a half bottle of whiskey, and generally wrecked the place. After helping himself to our stuff, he figured he'd check the bedroom to find anything else. He found my boyfriend, who'd just woken up from the sound of the bedroom door being slammed open. Apparently he thought Kevin was just a rude delivery guy at first. BF, huh? Kevin, what's your name? BF, it's Baryonyx. Kevin, I've got your picture mate. And he ran off. Our best guess is that he panicked after seeing my big 6FT4 BF in the apartment, and then legged it. A little later the police arrive and begin collecting our statements. BF describes the guy as large and heavy-set with a big puffy black jacket. Maybe 6 feet tall. We also start finding some more significant things missing, such as our pocket tools, my BF's wallet, his keys as well, and most importantly my USB, which contained my entire master's thesis. Oh shit. That's bad. I hadn't backed it up in ages. My friend from earlier comes over to check that I'm okay, since I hadn't texted her like I said I would. She's as surprised as I am to hear about the break-in. Us and one of the officers chat over some tea whilst another officer continues taking my BF's statement. I hear a knock at the door, and I assume it's another friend coming over to check on us. Myself and the officer walk to the door and I open it to find a heavy-set guy around 6 feet tall wearing a puffy black jacket. Huh. I stare at the guy for a moment, but he's looking past me at the officer, and then after a moment says the stupidest thing possible. Kevin, can I have my bags back please? P.O. What? Kevin, I left my bags and I want them back. P.O. Is this another one of your friends? Me, I have never seen this guy before in my life. The policeman grabs the guy and goes to ask my BF is this is the guy who broke in, and he confirms he is indeed the Kevin from earlier. The POs put him in cuffs, tell him he's under arrest for suspected burglary and start going through his pockets. My USB is there thank goodness, as well as the pocket tools, with the knives out, in his pocket. He could just have easily stabbed himself. So he's now on the hook for that as well. Now he starts claiming that someone else sent him to pick up some stuff, then that he thought it was a friend's house, then that the POs should be arresting us instead, since that USB contained sketchy shit. Pornos of Kevin and his friends. We show them the USB, there is nothing but my master's project on there. He also claimed that he was taking my BF's pocket knives to disarm him. Despite the fact that he didn't know my BF was there, and the pocket tools were in the bottom of a toolbox in a cupboard, in a separate room from him. At the end of the day, Kevin was arrested and we're getting reimbursement from him for repainting the wall, a lock replacement, our whiskey and the power pack that overheated in my BF's PC after cigarette ash got in there. Oh, and another one for the pack of biscuits. TL, Dr. Kevin breaks into our flat and wrecks the place, panics and runs out without his stuff when he realizes my BF is in the apartment still. Comes back over an hour later and asks the police for his bags back, gets arrested. Proof, left his bags.
Have to get this Kevin out of my chest by queirogis. Sorry for any English mistakes, I just need to vent about the most frustrating person I've ever met and I'm still learning. Edit, turns out it's off not out of my chest. Thank you for the help. So, about a year ago I started college, oh no. And, I have to admit, I thought there would be more people from small towns struggling with moving to a big city like I was, so, as soon as I discovered that one of the girls from my class was from another state, I quickly tried to talk to her. I figured that it was probably hard for both of us and, therefore, we could bond about the differences we've been seeing and discuss how we miss home. Here are some of the things the worst Kevin I have ever met said in the 6 months we studied together. 1. She honestly didn't know that drugs were addictive. She truly believed that being addicted to something was a figure of speech, not a real thing. 2. She asked me the difference between egg white and egg yolk. 3. She didn't know people could have learning disabilities. 4. She thought I feel like sleeping right now was a genuine good excuse to not show up at a group project presentation. 5. We had to explain to her the concept of North and South, since she, somehow, didn't know. It's an essential concept to be an architect, which is what we are studying to become. 6. She thought zodiac signs were scientifically proven to be real and accurate.
Oh, you're not fat, just full of air by turingthecat. This was many years ago, while I was at school. I was, and am, fat, not clinically obese, but defiantly overweight. I had a friend, who for obvious reasons we'll call Kevina, who was naturally underweight. She ate like a horse, had the most beautiful natural platinum blonde hair, and was very nice and kind, but she was, not blessed in the brains department. One day, out of nowhere she grabbed my upper arm, squeezed it a few times and then exclaimed loudly, "It's just like a balloon, see, you're not fat, you are just full of air." She looked genuinely confused when everyone in earshot started to giggle, and I had to gently explain, "No, that's what fat feels like."
Kevin. And my name is Kevin, too. By NoddyBowWow. Posted from r/tales from call centers. Sorry if this doesn't fit here. I'm an auto insurance agent. One of the things we are required to do is verify household drivers whenever a change is made to the policy. Simple enough? Nah. So I'll be M and K will be, you guessed it, Kevin. Standard intro. So I just need to verify, the licensed operators in your household are. Pause and refresh the page one moment. Sorry about that. So the licensed operators are. Pause as I try to figure out who fucked up and has this man on his own policy 4 times. Sir, I don't mean to be rude, but are your 3 sons all named Kevin, also? K. Yeah. Well, alright then. Licensed operators are Kevin, and Kevin, is that correct? K. Well, it's Kevin, and my name is Kevin. Okay. Could you spell Kevin and Kevin for me? K-U. Normal spelling? Kevin. Regular E? K. Frustrated. Yes. Kevin. What is hard about that? None of the Kevins had middle names, which made this next task particularly fun. So for the usage of your vehicles, I have the primary driver of the Jeep being, Kevin. K. Which one? Head desk. At the end of the call, I had to ask why. K. Because we thought it was unique.
Living with Kevina 1 and Kevina 2 by highwirebluebird. So some background, I live in a college dorm with 3 girls, but 2 of them couldn't find their asses if they had their hands in their back pockets. I honestly love them, they're my best friends, but living with them makes me feel like I'm going crazy. For brevity, I'll try to lump the best stories onto this one post. Story 1, the other day, I wasn't feeling great, so I asked Kevina 1 if she could feel my forehead. No biggie, she lays her hand on my forehead for a moment and shrugs. K1, I dunno, you got to be at least 70. Me, 70? 70 degrees? K1, yeah. Me, about to piss myself. Kevina, what do you think is a normal human temperature? K1, like 65. I couldn't respond. I took an ibuprofen and walked away. Story 2, Kevina 1 came out of the shower with a very light, rash-like irritation on her skin. Kevina 2, believe it or not, and I nearly went to med school, so we usually play doctor for the minor stuff. Before we can even look at it, Kevina 2 slathers Kevina 1 in a strange-smelling ointment. Me, Kevina 2, what is that? K2, it's nothing. Just some lotion. Me, it doesn't smell like lotion. K2, well, it's doTERRA lotion. It's like Neosporin but times 3. Of course, I die a little inside. I'm super anti-MLM, and I'm not a dumbass, so I have Kevina 1 wash it off and I put hydrocortisone on the rash. Of course, it's gone by the end of the night. It was likely just an irritation from the new shirt she had worn that day, but Kevina 2 was still trying to diagnose it. Suddenly, she suggests that the rash may have been caused by syphilis. Immediately, Kevina 1 freaks out. K1, what the fuck is syphilis? Me, wait, you don't know what syphilis is? K1, is it cancer? Me, Kevina, did you take sex ed in middle school? K1, no. Did you? After explaining what it was, I figured out that Kevina 1 didn't know any STDs. We're all sexually active adults, and she didn't even know what herpes was. I went to bed early that night. Story 3, Kevina 1 was feeling sore the other day from a workout, so Kevina 2 decided to play chiropractor in our living room. She popped and snapped every joint in Kevina 1's body, only to find that she was basically paralyzed the next morning. Kevina 2 denied any wrongdoing, claiming Kevina 1 wasn't relaxed enough during the session. It took Kevina 1 a full week before she could move her neck again. Story 4, this one's a little graphic. Kevina 1 found a skin tag where the sun don't shine, and after I carefully explained to her that she couldn't remove it herself, she proceeded to remove it herself. With craft scissors. She did it all on her bed, and she couldn't understand why she was bleeding out after literally sawing off a skin tag with safety scissors. After cleaning it up, she slapped a band-aid on it and went about her day. Keep in mind, this band-aid is right in the middle of everything down there. She didn't sanitize anything beforehand either, so now I have to figure out how I'm going to explain sepsis to her in a few days. Obviously, there are other stories, but these have been the most severe as of lately. I'm not claiming to be a genius either, but sometimes I feel like Einstein between the two of them. They really are my favorite people, but I was gonna lose it if I didn't share this somewhere.
Kevin's ignorance knows no bounds by Candra23. I worked with Kevin for several years. His profound ignorance in every field, including his job, was well known to all, but because management felt sorry for him, they kept him on the payroll. He was thoroughly incompetent as an HVAC mechanic, so despite being a journeyman, was only given the menial tasks usually assigned to first or second year apprentices, coil cleaning, belt and filter changes, basic monkey work. Because nothing was expected of Kevin, he was rarely in a position to fuck anything up on the job. That is why all my stories of his Kevinness are not work related. Kevin was an unabashed racist. He particularly hated Indian people. When asked why, he said because they stole the Taj Mahal. Kevin thought the Atlantic City Casino was the original, and the actual Taj Mahal in India was a cheap knockoff. He also believed this perceived slight was valid justification for hating an entire race of people. Perhaps you are familiar with the phrase 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. What's the difference? Kevin firmly believed it was 60 of one, a dozen of the other. When the actual phrase and its meaning were explained to him, Kevin refused to believe it. He said it doesn't make any sense, but was unable to explain how his version somehow did make sense. Kevin had never read a book. Never. He was actually rather proud of his accomplishment. When asked how he got through high school without reading a single book, he claimed that he cheated a lot on tests, and after being held back twice, his parents made so many threats about suing the school for discrimination that they let him graduate just to be rid of him. Since Kevin was white and went to school in a predominantly white town, I have no idea what the school was supposed to be discriminating against. Stupidity, perhaps? Kevin was an extremely picky eater. The building we worked in had an excellent cafeteria, but Kevin would only eat the pepperoni sandwiches he brought from home. When asked why, he said he didn't like all that weird stuff, which consisted of normal, cafeteria food. One day a co-worker offered Kevin some pepperoni from the cafeteria, and he refused it. His reasoning? Kevin didn't trust the racial expletive deleted to make his food. He truly believed they put chemicals in the cafeteria food that would turn him gay. Kevin was terrified of being turned gay. Kevin was initially provided with a company work truck, but because he couldn't be bothered to bring it in for regular maintenance, eventually leading to a blown engine after he drove it for nearly a year without an oil change, that privilege was revoked. Kevin's personal car had a bumper sticker which read "My other car is a beach buggy." When asked about the beach buggy, Kevin said he didn't have one, he just liked the sticker. One day Kevin was marking one of the electricians on site for being retarded. Turns out the electrician, who was from Trinidad and had only been in the US a couple of years, had gotten lost and driven 6 hours in the wrong direction, through 3 states, on what should have been a 1-hour road trip. While that was definitely a fuck-up on his part, Kevin was being merciless about it. We decided to test Kevin's geography skills by making him fill out a map of the US with the state names removed. Just to be fair, everybody else took the same test. It was a slow day. Everybody else got at least 40 states, with most getting 45 or more. Kevin only correctly labeled 13 states. This man in his 30s, who was born and raised in NJ, was unable to correctly identify NY on a map. Kevin saw nothing wrong with this, because why do I need to know where those states are? I'm never going there. I know for a fact he went to NY regularly. Eventually I moved on to another job. A few years later, one of the managers at my new company said they had a mechanic applying and he'd put me down as a reference. It was Kevin. I told the manager exactly the kind of employee and person Kevin was, and obviously, he wasn't hired.
Kevin thinks heading north means going forward by twarorzek. So I have a new work partner, and within 3 days of knowing him I was sure I was in the presence of a Kevin. Here are some highlights for you lovely people. Oh, and I'll preface this by saying I work in a biology-related field and Kevin has a background in environmental sciences. 1. Kevin doesn't know how to use a compass. We have shown him multiple times how to simply take a bearing. For those who don't know, this just requires finding true north and finding the direction you are observing a species. He just keeps complaining that it takes so much effort and wants to use his incredibly inaccurate phone app instead. Not like quality of data matters or anything. 2. Kevin completely doesn't understand north, east, south, west and is completely baffled how I know which direction we are driving on site. Cherry on top of the cake. Today he said that all he remembers is the acronym "Never Eat Shredded Wheat" and how he thought that meant that if he is looking/facing forward that means he is going north. And if he turns right that means it's east. Etc. 3. Kevin's spatial awareness is basically non-existent. We have been driving to the same survey locations for over a week and he still can't even find his way to the main office. I had to leave him for one afternoon and Kevin managed to get so lost that not even employees that have been here for years could figure out where he was. Dear God, give me strength to get through the next couple of months with this guy. TLDR, Kevin doesn't know how to use a basic compass, thinks moving forward is equivalent to heading north, and is incapable of navigating around a simple camp. Help me.
Kevina unable to live on her own by Shapperd. So, I had this friend. Not so long ago. Firstly I thought she is a normal college girl, nothing special. But the more I got to know her, the more I realized that she is the dumbest person I've ever met. No, not in any special way, just simply dumb to life. So we are talking about in 26 years. University student. She wanted to make a deep frozen pizza. Put in the oven with the plastic. Attempt 2, burnt it black. Attempt none, success. It's now edible. First thing she can make. Before this, she always ordered food. I've got her some fruit syrup. She started drinking it, if it was soft drink. She never had syrup before, and didn't know how to drink it. She didn't know about detergents and all these stuff. Always washed her clothes with pure water. Did not have the basic idea of STDs and how they spread. Despite she had a one-night partner. Raw. When I told her what could happen she burst into tears about I did not know. Not even talking about getting pregnant. Yes, she did not know that food need to be cooled, to be consumable next day. Especially meats. She left the leftover on the desk, and ate next day, or even the day after next day. I don't even know how did she not get ill? Washing up? What is even that? Rinse with water. Done. So basically this is all I can think of now. I don't know 2 things. 1. where she lived in her 26 years. Must been living in some cave or something. 2. How did she survive?
My sister is a Kevin by Mo347. On mobile, sorry blah blah. I can't believe I never realized how much of a Kevin my sister is. She is now 25 and I don't see her often, but when we were kids we shared a room and boy do I have some stories to tell. My sister was 16 and in history class and was asked what war involved Hitler and the Jews. This question was for bonus points. Her response? Civil War II. This was out loud, in front of the entire class. One night it was incredibly hot in our room, so we cracked the window. She cracked the side without a screen but had already laid down and didn't want to fix it. She then asked me, "OMG, what are we going to do if a squirrel gets in?" I told her don't worry, no squirrel is going to come in. Oh yeah, cause squirrels don't live in Oklahoma, I forgot. I literally couldn't even say anything. I just stared at her. In her geography class in high school, there was a test question that asked what the longest river in the United States is. She put the Nile River. The Nile River. There was a huge ice storm in our town and we had lost power for 3 to 4 days. We were told to unplug any unnecessary electronics because the surge of power when it did come on could have a risk to break something. We did have a gas heater though, so we had some regular comforts. My sister goes into the living room and just exclaims, we could have been watching TV this whole time if just plugged it in. You guys are so dumb." I told her to go ahead and try it. No sense in trying to explain to her why the electric TV wouldn't work without electricity. There are many, many more, but I can't remember them all at the moment. She is one of the most ridiculous people I know, to be honest.
Kevin forgot he couldn't swim by R4ND0M_TW1NB. I just found this subreddit and remembered a story about a Kevin, who seems to fit the bill. This story takes place about 10 or so years ago. I have ceased contact since, but this story is funny, so I thought I'd share. When I was a teen we lived in a house that had this enclosed pool room that was built around an in-ground pool, with a landing that had doors to into the house, a small hot tub beside the house and a steam room and small bathroom in the other side. The previous owners were steel workers, and instead of cutting down the E8 trees in the yard, or having to do a lot of cleanup every time you wanted to take a dip, they put a room around it with glass walls and huge sliding doors on either side that opened almost all the way up. It also happened to have this awful burgundy carpet around the pool, no idea why, and a diving board in the center of the deep end. I promise I'm getting to the Kevin bit. My sister and I loved to have friends over to swim every summer, or just to chill in a hot tub in the winter. We were about halfway through high school when we made friends with some guys through an ex of mine from the next city over, and my sister was dating one of them, so we kind of adopted his friend group. I think the first summer we hung out, we decided to have a pool day with these friends, so we sent out a group message, and everyone thought it was a great idea. We went out to buy snacks and drinks before everyone showed up. Once all the guys show up, they go to change into their bathing suits. We had a couple different rooms people could use in and around the house, so after about 10 minutes everyone was ready to go. We walked out to the pool area, where Kevin saw the diving board and got super excited. Apparently he had never seen one in real life before this point, so he hops on, takes a run, then jumps straight into the deepest part of the pool, 10 feet to the bottom. He comes up, splashing around, and starts to yell, "I can swim. Help." We thought he was kidding at first, but my sister's BF at the time was a lifeguard, so he quickly figured out he wasn't kidding, and jumped in and hauled his ass over to the shallow end and sat him on the steps. He quickly calmed down, looked at the lifeguard friend and said, "Thanks dude, I got so excited about the diving board I forgot I don't know how to swim." All of us looked at him like, seriously? But it was 100% true. So we put up the safety rope that separates the shallow end from the deep end and told him don't pass the rope if you don't wanna die, and had a good laugh about it afterwards. He ended up buying a life jacket before the next swim excursion to make sure it didn't happen again.
Kevin did not know of 9/11 by codpiecesalad. I was living in an apartment with a few roommates and one of them happened to be a Kevin. This Kevin is a bit of an anomaly, because he is brilliant in maths, but absolutely clueless in everything else. He was 25 then, had a good job at a large, famous consultancy company. On September 11, 2003, a TV channel was running a docu on September 11, And while we lived in the Philippines, there was no way you could have not been exposed to what happened to the Twin Towers, because of the heavy media coverage when it happened. Anyway, Kevin came running down the stairs, looking very panicked and started shouting, "Oh my God, the Twin Towers, they're destroyed." My first thought was, there are other Twin Towers? So I asked him which Twin Towers he's talking about and he said, New York. It took me a while to realize that he actually did not know about the fact that it happened 2 years ago and that he's watching old video clips and that he's watching a documentary, not actual, current news reports. I explained this all to him, and he left me not terribly convinced. Edit, word.
Kevin made alcohol freeze by x_is. Let me set the stage. 9th grade graduation party, and we plan to hang out with the entire class at a guy's summer house to celebrate the beginning of high school. Everyone agreed that there will be no alcohol, since we all knew shit wouldn't end well. Anyways, our Kevin is a small, dog-like, hyperactive dude with the IQ of a 2nd grader. Although he didn't bring any booze himself, he found a vodka bottle in the freezer. He told the group that he would make tea, but instead, he went on and in the span of 2 hours drank the entire thing. However, since Kevin is the big brain of the pack, he understood that the now empty bottle looked suspicious. So how did he solve this? Motherfucker went, "Oh, I'll replace the alcohol with water and put it back in the freezer. Yeah, that'll work." Fast forward 12 hours and the parents of the party host find ice instead of vodka. Magic.
Queen of the Kevinas thought she was a genius by SpicyTunaSushi. Kevina was in my ancient history class in the 7th grade. Kevina was the queen bee, but she was also really dumb. The dumb stuff she said during that class was so funny, I made a list in one of my sketchbooks of the dumb stuff she said. Yesterday I rediscovered that sketchbook and decided to share a few of my faves off the list. For homework we had an assignment to write a short essay about 5 things we would bring if we went back in time to the Paleolithic age. One person said they would bring a survival guide, to help them know what plants they could eat, how to make tools, etc. A teacher comments that it was a good choice, and Kevina in her infinite wisdom decides she has a comment to make. Kevina immediately blurts out, "But that's a waste of one of your 5 items. You could just pick up a brochure when you get there." Everyone looks at her like she has 5 heads. To anyone who didn't learn this in school, the Paleolithic age was caveman times. They did not have a language or writing, and they most definitely didn't have brochures just lying around. The teacher had to explain this to her multiple times, while the whole time Kevina fought with him, and after 10 to 15 minutes of this, finally says, "Let's just agree to disagree." I was fully prepared to throw a fat textbook at her head. We were talking about the 10 plagues during our unit on the Middle East. This graduated into questions about the Jewish religion, and then the Holocaust. Someone made a comment about Anne Frank, and Kevina chimes in, "I feel really bad for her, it would suck if you couldn't see or hear." And she was in the Holocaust. Took a solid 5 to 10 minutes for the teacher to explain to her that Anne Frank and Helen Keller were not in fact the same person. He had to actually show her multiple credible websites proving that they weren't the same person, and she still refused to admit that she was wrong. For the entire school year, Kevina had an ongoing fight with my teacher about what human meat would smell like. My teacher said it would probably smell like pork, a reasonable guess. Kevina had a theory that it smelled like steak. Makes sense, right? It was probably the only thing she said that made sense all year. But that wasn't the weird part. She backed up her theory by saying that she was the only one who could actually back up her theory because she burned her hand on a stove one time when she was 5. This clearly made no sense, especially because for a good quarter of the 7th grade, I had to wear bandages on my arm because I got 3rd-degree burns from an accident. My arm did not smell like steak, nor did it smell like steak during or immediately after the accident. Her guess made sense, but her argument that she could actually confirm it because she got 2nd-degree burns from a stove when she was 5 was a straight lie, which I told her multiple times. But my input was irrelevant because I was more qualified to give my 2 cents, but I didn't agree with her. In case you didn't already figure it out, she failed that class, and went to a private school for rich kids the next year. Edit. Some friendly Redditors have pointed out that there was a language in Paleolithic times. Sorry, I haven't been in that class in years, so I don't remember much. There was still no written language however, so Kevina was still very off.
Customer Kevina at Arby SpicyTunaSushi. Kevina's a vegan. She doesn't want just plain fries. She wants loaded fries, but can't have them because of the bacon, which is meat, and wants to know if she can have it with sour cream instead. Upon being reminded the two kinds of cheese, ranch, and sour cream are animal products and not vegan friendly, Kevina is speechless because she realizes she can only have the plain fries.
Kevina doesn't understand grilled cheese by Desulto. A while back, my mom and I were on a road trip. We were leaving about lunchtime, so we decided to stop at a local convenience store that made its own sandwiches. I got something pre-wrapped while my mom got a grilled cheese sandwich at the counter. The sandwich was made, we paid, and we left the store. We were almost to the car when my mom realized that the aluminum wrapping on her grilled cheese wasn't warm, so she opened it to find the grilled cheese not grilled. She went back inside and asked the woman at the counter about it. The woman, in her Kevinity, shrugged and said something along the lines of, "But you didn't say you wanted it grilled." My mom argued, saying that it was right on both the menu and the sticker Kevina used to tape the wrapping shut. It was what my mom was paying for, and would Kevina please do the thing that should have been obvious? So Kevina did the thing that is obvious to Kevins everywhere. She got manager, who had the sandwich grilled, and gave my mom a coupon, apologizing and in good spirits. We laughed about it, still do, and never saw Kevina at the convenience store again.
Lady Kevin thinks water heater is magical by Bctis87. Not mine but my cousin's. We work maintenance at an apartment complex. Cousin gets a call about a water heater not working, so he goes to investigate. He checks all the wiring and voltage and cannot seem to find what is wrong with it, so he goes to turn on the hot water in the kitchen sink and nothing comes out. He then tries the cold side and nothing comes out there either, so he has the following conversation with Kevina. C equals cousin K equals Kevina. C mum, when is the last time you paid your water bill? K 3 months ago. C mum, I'm sorry, but until you pay your water bill there is nothing I can do. K, but that makes hot water. Why isn't it making hot water? C, hold on, say that again one more time. K, that makes hot water. C, do you believe that that machine makes hot water from nothing? K, that's what it does, now fix it. C, mum, if there was a machine that could make water from nothing, it would be in a laboratory, not in your closet. Now there is nothing I can do until you pay your water bill. K, no, you're just lazy and don't want to do your job. C, stunned silence. And then he walked out of the apartment with a headache and much less faith in humanity.
My Spanish teacher, SRA. Kevina by temporary Raspberry 40. There are good teachers and there are bad teachers, but SRA. Kevina really falls into a class of her own. I don't think I have ever met someone so chronically, inexplicably, incurably, fundamentally clueless as SRA. Kevina, and I've had to deal with a lot of stupid people. SRA. Kevina was my Spanish teacher for 2 torturous years thus far, and this year will be my last with her. You'll have to excuse my constant changing of tense. I keep forgetting that I still have her class. I'm 99.9% sure that the only reason the school hired her in the first place was because she is the only adult in a 40-mile radius that speaks fluent Spanish. Considering the amount of incidents they had regarding her behavior and the horrible pass rate for the state tests, you would think they'd have let her go a decade ago, but I don't think they really had a choice. Anyway, SRA. Kevina was clearly very wealthy. She must have been born into money or had a rich husband, because she sure as hell couldn't afford any of the things she bought on a teacher's salary. Trust me, my mother taught at my school and teachers were not paid very much. She drove a Mercedes, constantly wore expensive clothes, spent every other weekend in Europe. We live in a very rural upstate New York town, and had a whole collection of ordinary objects by Tiffany's, things like paper cups made of porcelain and painted Tiffany blue. They cost several $1,000s and she used to use them as pencil holders. You'd think most of her cluelessness could be attributed to rich people not understanding how normal people live, and trust me, she didn't, but it went beyond that. These are some of my favorite/least favorite. We had a love/hate relationship. Things about SRA. Kevina. She had no goddamn idea how languages work whatsoever. She didn't know that Spanish and Italian are separate languages until another teacher told her. SRA. Kevina speaks fluent Spanish, and I have no idea how she lived her entire life thinking the two languages are the same thing. She didn't know that dialects were a thing. Either she was a Spanish immigrant who spoke Castilian, and she thought it was the only dialect. We had 2 kids in our class who spoke different dialects, and SRA. Kevina would be absolutely bemused when they'd use terms like lapicera instead of boligrafo. It wasn't just Spanish. She also didn't understand that languages could evolve at all, and thought that they just remained the same forever. Notably, she thought the English thou was a made-up word. And speaking of English, she had little to no understanding of English either. I mean, she spoke the language decently, but had no idea how it worked. She accused us of making up words a lot and didn't seem to think that cognates existed. For example, frequently. She insisted that the English word was often exclusively and would get angry whenever someone said frequently. Same with obtain versus get, or comprehend versus understand. She also thought that ballet wasn't a word because English pronunciation doesn't work like that. She was obsessed with Don Quixote, but never actually read Don Quixote. She had about 30 copies of it that I never once saw her pick up, and she constantly talked about stuff that straight up never happened in the book. Like Don Quixote and Dulcinea del Toboso's famous romance that never happened because Dulcinea was a random-ass farm girl named Aldonza who probably had no idea Quixote existed. I'm like 80% sure she saw a movie or a ballet and assumed it was identical to the book, but she insisted that she did indeed read the entire novel cover to cover. I don't know why. She also confused Don Quixote with Lamis. A lot. I'm not entirely sure she knew that Spanish and French were separate languages, either. She never got anyone's names right. She taught less than 65 kids and had the same group for years on, and you'd think she would actually learn our names, but nope. Sometimes she just gave us totally inexplicable nicknames instead. There was a girl in our class she called Tuesday and we couldn't figure it out for years, until she finally explained that this girl reminded her of Wednesday Addams because she always had her hair in braids. Except SRA. Kevina didn't remember that the character was called Wednesday, so she just picked a random day and went with that. There was also a girl called Ren who she called Scout for some reason. Apparently Ren, Finch, Scout Finch, Scout? That's what we theorized, anyway. I doubt SRA. Kevina read To Kill a Mockingbird, but it made at least a little sense. She also had no idea what any nickname stood for. Someone convinced her that the Don in Don Quixote was short for Doniel once. Doniel Quixote. We also had a kid called Mick, short for Michael, who convinced her that it was short for Michelangelo. She was obsessed with the British royal family, but couldn't keep any of their names straight, either, and constantly confused them with other royal families. After the 4th or 5th time hearing her obsess over Duchess Kathleen / Karen / Kayla / Karina / literally anything but Catherine, we just gave up. Sometimes she forgets who the queen is, or that there even is a queen. She also thinks that Russia is still a monarchy and no one wants to burst her bubble. I'm pretty sure she thinks the animated Anastasia movie is historically accurate. She doesn't understand religion and constantly forgets which religion she is. Last time, she told us she was Catholic, but now she thinks Catholicism and Islam is the same thing because someone gave her a chick tract about it. She also doesn't understand that different denominations of Christianity are different things, and thought Protestants were just weird Catholics. She also doesn't know Judaism still exists and thinks the Illuminati is a religion. You might be wondering how any of this is relevant to Spanish class. It isn't. She talks about it anyway. She doesn't know how diseases work and is a huge germaphobe because she's afraid of getting smallpox. She also doesn't like vaccines, though not because she thinks they cause autism, but because she's afraid of needles. She explains this to us in class. Frequently. I don't know why she feels the need to constantly tell us this. Sometimes she just says completely random, inexplicable things for no reason. Yesterday she angrily told us that Catherine the Great was a scam. I'm not sure why. Sometimes she tells people she doesn't believe in something that really isn't something you can agree or disagree with. The class has kept a list. I don't have it on me to check, but epilepsy, ancient Byzantine, and the entire planet of Mars are all on there. I'm not sure how one just doesn't believe in epilepsy. I'm pretty sure she thinks it's some sort of religion. Side note, we have a kid with epilepsy in our class and sometimes he has absence seizures, and SRA. Kevina has gotten in trouble for yelling at him while he's seizing because she doesn't think petit mal seizures are a thing. She uses dashes when she means to use hyphens. It's a stupid nitpick on my part, but it annoys me to no end whenever I see her doing it now. She'll write things like 27. I hate it. Anyway, that's all I have to say about SRA. Kevina. Needless to say, we have learned no Spanish at all for the past 2 years, and considering that we spent all of yesterday discussing Morgan Morkel's wedding instead of doing classwork, I don't have high hopes for this year, either.
Kevin tells on himself by deleted. Don't know if he's a Kevin or not, but here you go. This happened in 3rd grade. I was about 8 years old. When I was younger, we would always move from place to place, both in our country and abroad. That meant every 2 to 3 years I had to visit a new school, make new friends, etc. And I was always the outsider, therefore a lot of kids didn't like me. One day at school, during the break, I was as always sitting alone outside, eating a sandwich. I don't remember how or why, but here comes my classmate Kevin, one of those kids that didn't like me, and starts insulting me for no apparent reason. Words that no 8-year-old should say. I tried to ignore him, but that angered him so much, he tried to kick me in the groin. Somehow I managed to grab his leg before he actually hit me and I pushed him back. He almost tripped but didn't fall down. He started sobbing as he said the following. Kevin, what are you doing? Why are you such an asshole? I could have fallen down and gotten hurt. I'm gonna tell Ms. Random Name what you did. You are in so much trouble. I didn't say a thing as he walked away, but I was scared. What would he tell her? I didn't do anything to him. The bell rings and we get in the classroom. Kevin raises his hand and I watch in fear, shock, confusion and relief as the following conversation transpired. Kevin, excuse me, Ms. Random Name. Ms. Aaron, yes Kevin? Kevin, during the break, I tried to kick up but he grabbed my leg, pushed me back and I almost fell down. I could have gotten really hurt. Please, put him in detention. Ms. Aaron, but why would you try to kick him in the first place? I couldn't believe my ears. He was so confused and didn't know what to say. He was sent to the principal's office and as he was walking out he looked at me with the most "that's your fault" face ever. I don't need to tell you who got detention. Back then I thought he was really stupid. Now that I'm an adult I sometimes think that it was just a case of a child's ignorance. But come on, an 8-year-old can't be that ignorant, right?